It's Spectre. It's an honour to welcome to the Spark Film Show film critic James King.
Hi, how are you?
I'm great, thanks. How are you?
Very good, thank you. You ready to talk Bond?
I've been waiting so long, so long.
Are you a fan then?
I'm a massive fan. I'm a recent Bond fan. That's the thing. I'm still catching up with all the old ones.
Yeah, but I think that must be fun though, to know that you've still got another 15 or 20 to catch up with. That's
exactly
a nice thing to look forward to.
It's the best thing. It's like when a show gets cancelled, you've got loads and loads of stuff to go back on.
Yeah.
It's really exciting. So I'm going to try and catch up before Monday. Of course, you've seen Spectre, I'm guessing, from last night?
Yes, I did see it, yeah.
Without giving anything away too much, what can we expect? What did you think?
I think you can expect the best of old and new Bond. So if you are a huge Bond fan and you want some references to old Bond movies and you want echoes of old Bond movies, they're in there. But also if you're a fan of the more recent ones and you want a contemporary feeling thriller that deals with relevant issues and politics, it's in there too. So really, I would say it's the Bond movie with something for everyone. It feels like a concerted effort on the part of the filmmakers to tick a lot of boxes and keep everyone happy.
Do you think it's this sort of shift from Skyfall, which was seen as a really sort of fan-based film? Do you think they've kind of taken a different route with this one at all?
I think there are some, broader moments, perhaps, and it's definitely in the gags. So we don't always associate Daniel Craig with gags, right?
No.
But there are some sillier moments. Now, nothing quite as silly as the Roger Moore years, but there are definitely some lighter moments that I think are aimed at as broad a mainstream audience as possible. Having said all of that, of course, Skyfall was the biggest film of all time in the UK, so clearly a very broad audience enjoyed it in the first place.
Do you think this can beat Skyfall?
I don't know. I mean, I wonder what the producers must be thinking, because they obviously, have figures in their head of the kind of thing they want to achieve and the kind of thing they need to achieve to break even. But I think they have to be realistic that Skyfall, when it came out on the 50th anniversary of the first James Bond film, 2012, which was, of course, a very big year for Great Britain, with lots of events going on, the Olympics, Golden Jubilee, things like that, it felt like it was part of something bigger, Skyfall. And with Spectre, you don't have that. So I'm not sure whether there's that extra energy there to push it over, into the number one spot. But it will clearly do very well and deserves to do very well.
I'm really excited for it now that you've said that. So there's been a survey recently that said that Daniel Craig's been voted the most popular Bond amongst cinema goers.
Yeah. So it's Cineworld did a survey. They asked their unlimited card members to vote for. I suppose it would be the ultimate James Bond film, the kind of Bond film they'd want to see an unlimited amount of times over and over again. So best Bond, best villain, best Bond girl.
Yeah.
And you're right, Daniel Craig won best Bond by quite a long way. I mean, he got 48%, so nearly half the votes. And poor old Sean Connery in second place with 23%. So Daniel Craig really won that by a clear margin.
Do you think that's a recency bias? Do you think people have just gone what they've seen recently? Maybe someone like me who's not gone back into the past yet and seen the old ones?
There has to be some of that, I think. But then Sean Connery in second place was the first Bond, so he wasn't recent. So I think there's a certain amount of that, and you see it in some of the other categories as well. For example, Javier Bardem from Skyfall was the second favourite villain, and the Bond girls from recent films have done very well too in the survey. So I think there's some of that. But watching him last night in Spectre, he does in this movie especially. He has a lot of the best elements of all the other Bonds. So, like I said, the gags are there now from the Roger Moore years. I think he looks more comfortable being suave and sophisticated, as Pierce Brosnan could do very well. And he's always had that brilliant tough menace that Sean Connery had. So he's a real mix of other Bonds now.
So Craig has sort of nailed the hard, grizzled Bond that Dalton couldn't quite manage. Do you think in Spectre there's kind of more of that camp charm that we used to from previous Bonds that maybe Craig's never had?
Yeah, I think someone must have said, right, okay, the films have done really well, Dan, but what the criticism has always been that it's a bit cold. So let's try and just warm that up a bit. And there's actually quite touching and emotional romance in there this time, and the jokes. And so, it does feel like someone has made the effort to just lighten him at the right moments. Now, there are some really dark moments and some really intense moments, of course, but there's light and shade, which is good.
So M, of course, has been voted most popular Bond girl.
Yeah.
Which has been sort of seen as surprising. She's not really typically classed as a Bond girl. She is, of course, M. What do you think it is that makes her so endearing?
Well, certainly the fact that she isn't the usual kind of Bond girl, that helps, I think. But also Judi Dench obviously is amazing as an actor. But I think the relationship that she has with Bond, first Pierce Brosnan, but especially with Daniel Craig as Bond, grew over the films. And so in Skyfall it really culminated, and she became very much a major character. And she's had this relationship with him where she's been a bit spiky with him and doesn't really fall for his charms, but at the same time she clearly has admiration for him and has a very close relationship with him. And we've seen that grow, and I think that's why her performance, as well as being a brilliant performer, the script has allowed her to really, really get stuck in our memories.
Another Bond girl high up the list is Vesper, played by Eva Green. She's been a very influential figure in Craig's Bond. Basically spent the entire Quantum of Solace crying about it. Do you think the poll shows that the fans are kind of behind a deeper relationship with Bond, somebody that you can sort of attach to more than just a sort of throwaway that you get in most of the films?
I think they are, actually, and Daniel Craig era Bond has definitely tried to make the Bond girls. I don't think they even like to be called Bond girls anymore.
No.
He's definitely tried to make them more well-rounded characters who have more of an impact. And, spoiler alert, Vesper Lynd does continue to cast her shadow over him in Spectre as well.
Ryan's got his hand on his face here. This is something that you really weren't hoping for.
I just feel like that storyline's been dealt with.
Well, Ryan, it's not. I don't think it's overplayed, but there's just a little tease there. It's just there briefly. So I think that my God, if I was in a relationship with Eva Green, I wouldn't stop thinking about it.
For all Quantum of Solace's flaws, it did tie up that storyline really nicely. With that last shot with the necklace and the snow and that whole monologue with him. And if you see it doesn't integrate itself too much, then I think that's a good thing. Yeah.
But I like the fact that it just shows he doesn't just, fall for someone in one movie and then move on very easily, which of course he did for many years.
What do you think makes a good Bond girl? What do you think it takes? Because you can kind of nail down a good James Bond and a good sort of Bond villain, but what about a good Bond girl?
Well, I think if we're talking traditional Bond girl, then there has to be an element of beauty and exoticism and mystery about them. I mean, that's been there right from the word go. And that's why often James Bond, as the archetypal British guy, is often involved with maybe sort of European or foreign women, because they have this sort of air of exoticism about them. So I think there definitely has to be that, and Lea Seydoux in Spectre, keeps that going. But more and more now we want someone who's tough and who can handle themselves and isn't just waiting to be protected by James Bond. And you see that in Spectre. There's sort of this idea that James Bond has to protect Lea Seydoux's character, and that's why he sort of goes to meet her in the first place, to say, I'm going to, help you. And she kind of says, you know what, I'm pretty good on my own, actually.
So what do you see for Bond in the future? Where do you think it goes from here? Because obviously we've been going 53 years now. How much longer do you think it can run and keep the audiences entertained?
It's a good question, because there's always an initial excitement and a rush of interest when the Bond is still quite fresh, and then it does tail off. It's always happened. It happened with Pierce Brosnan when he came in GoldenEye. It was like, hooray, Pierce Brosnan, GoldenEye, it's a new Bond. By Die Another Day, we were like, really? Do we have to see this again? So I think we're quite fickle, and you could argue that the cycle of Daniel Craig's years is coming to its end, and we will be requiring something a bit different for the next phase. I think that probably will be a new Bond, a new actor to play James Bond, and that immediately lifts the franchise again.
Yeah, to me it does seem that, obviously, I think Bond was in a very, very dangerous state sort of in the years, in the sort of intermediate time between Die Another Day and Casino Royale coming into fruition. And I think that Die Another Day, obviously, we were promised with Pierce Brosnan to have a bit more of a harder Bond, and I think that's what he wanted himself. And I think that showed that audiences maybe weren't into that anymore, especially with the invisible car, God forbid. I mean, oh God, I still get flashbacks. But, you know, and then obviously the Bourne Identity came along in 2002, and that was very much sort of the modern spy, you know, the hard-hitting, the fast-paced, energetic stuff. And that's very much what Campbell, the director for Casino Royale, brought back to the franchise. And I think maybe if that's what people are expecting now, I don't know, maybe if they do, I mean, obviously if they are bringing back sort of campier, sillier elements progressively in Skyfall and now in Spectre, Do you think it's best to go sort of down and just make sure we don't forget who Bond is as time goes on, and we get another, because he is part of the British furniture, Bond. He's very much like tea and crumpets and Doctor Who and sort of everything. In Robin Hood. He's a legend. And he is part of us. So I think. Yeah, I mean, as he goes down the time, we do need to think that Bond does need to change, but I think it's important not to forget the DNA, sort of the tapestry of who he is. That's what's important,
and I'd like to think that after 53 years, the producers are getting a picture of that now. They've tried different things over those years, and they've gone in different directions. And I think now what we're seeing is a mix of all of those, a hybrid of all of those things. But it can't last forever. I'm not saying James Bond won't, but that sort of mood can't last, and there'll be another movie, like when The Bourne Identity came along and sort of rewrote the rules of the action movie and The Matrix as well. Bond had to react to that, and there'll be another film that we don't even know about yet that will come out and will change the face of cinema and will change how we see thrillers and action movies, and again, Bond will have to react to that.
We've been treated this year as some pretty good films and some pretty good franchise film, Bond being one of them. Of course, the next one is Star Wars. The survey that has been mentioned is, of course, said that Star Wars is the second most wanted film of the year.
Yeah, Hunger Games, I think, was third.
Yeah, so can I just ask you, what was your reaction to the trailer? I have to ask.
The new trailer?
Yep, Star Wars.
Well, we've been having this discussion. I haven't watched it. You can sigh all you want. There's a deliberate reason.
Right, okay.
No, it's because now I think it's it's a couple of months away. It's close to the release date now. And I think I've found out everything I want to know about Star Wars in its, teaser format. Now I'm just waiting for the big thing, the actual big reveal on the big screen when it properly comes out. I don't want to know too much before going in.
I must say it's a very unspoilerish trailer. I mean, especially compared to the fact that Hollywood seems to have an endemic problem these days with having so much in the trailers. I mean, obviously, I know that goes back to the 90s with Terminator 2 having the big twist in that trailer. But it's become so. I mean, it's literally just you've got to have your hit points in the trailers now. I think the art of a good teaser trailer has sort of been lost somewhere in translation, I feel, and I think that some people could probably gain to get that art back. I think that with a good marketing campaign, it's pretty much half of the getting the movie out there. That's what it seems to me.
But Star Wars doesn't reveal too much.
Oh,
what you're saying.
No. It's certainly an interesting stance to have. I mean, we see a lot of trailers from seeing a lot of films, and certainly the number of films that we've seen and just come out going, well, what was the point? What was the point? A few spring.
Totally agree, and I think the hype around trailers now is a little bit ridiculous when you actually step back and consider what they are and what their purpose is.
Star Wars itself had a teaser for a teaser, so
exactly, yeah. I saw the other trailers. I'm really looking forward to Star Wars. I can't wait. I'm a huge J.J. Abrams fan. I think the actors in there are great. John Boyega's a great actor. Oscar Isaac's a great actor. So it's going to be amazing. But I've sort of reached my limit now of teasing. Now I just want to see the real thing.
Certainly bringing back to Spectre, what a fantastic trailer that was. We're still seeing it now. Obviously, haven't seen the film yet. And every single time Christoph Waltz, that's what we're excited for. Obviously, we're not going to ask you, but we really want to know what the whole deal is. And
he doesn't disappoint. I'll put it like that. He doesn't disappoint. Christoph Waltz is a double Oscar winner from playing very charismatic bad guys.
Yeah.
So he knows how to do it. Perhaps he's not really doing anything hugely different to what he's done before, but at the same time, I mean, he can do it so well. Who cares?
Yeah.
The way that his character is portrayed, the way that he's shot, the clothes he wears, it's all done with huge care and attention to detail and beautifully. And the first moment you see him, you don't because he's sort of in shadows really, but is, I think, a classic Bond moment.
Certainly could be on the list for best film if this survey is done in a few years' time.
Yeah, I think he will. I mean, we have real affection for Christoph Waltz as a villain.
Yeah.
Like I said, he can do it with charisma, he can do it with charm, and that's not easy. He absolutely doesn't disappoint at all. But none of the characters do in the cast. I mean, Andrew Scott, of course, who we know from Sherlock, is really good in it. It's
someone we don't really know much about yet from the trailers.
Yeah. Exactly, it's not a headline-grabbing role, but he looks so comfortable in it, considering it's such a big deal for him to be in this. He just looks really relaxed around much more experienced actors, So he's very noticeable in the film.
Well, I have to say, James...
I must also ask quickly, Dave Bautista, a lot was made about him being sort of the modern day version of Jaws. Does he get a lot to do, really, or will that be spoilerish to say?
Well, he's the main henchman. Yeah, I mean,
excellent.
he's the guy after Bond, and there's a great fight scene between him and Bond on a train, which I think nods back to other Bond films. Live and Let Die springs to mind.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, he looks great, doesn't he? He's a great physical presence.
I mean,
just don't expect too much dialogue.
No. I mean, this Bond especially seems to have such a fantastic cast. With Ralph Fiennes obviously, and Naomi Harris. I haven't mentioned Monica Bellucci, who seems to be a Bond girl who should have been there 20 years ago. Finally getting her chance in here. But yeah, I mean, it's a testament to how big and grandiose the franchise is that it can get such great casts consistently.
And with Sam Mendes as well, if you've got an Oscar-winning director in there, great theatre director as well, I think people want to work with him. Ralph Fiennes chooses his projects very carefully. He's not just going to work with anybody.
Yeah, I mean, the cinematography for the Bond films, especially the Craig films, have been superb pretty much.
Wait till you see this one. There are moments you just want to freeze frame on the big screen.
I know it's not Roger Deakins' lens in
poster.
it this time around, but still, I mean, the trailer...
Yeah.
I mean, the Day of the Dead sequence, a lot's been made of that, the opening sequence. I can't wait for that. I can't wait for
beautiful.
all of it.
It's really beautiful, stunning stuff.
Brilliant.
James, you've got us very, very excited for Spectre.
Good.
Excellent. Thank you very much for your time, James.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye. That was James King. Very nice of him to speak to us about Bond, which we are seeing on Monday.
Ooh,
it's exciting.